Hi, Muchísimo Eugene. Welcome to another video from Exit Strategy. Please like, subscribe, share the video. Give a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And pass it on if you believe someone else will benefit from it. I would appreciate that. Now, this should end all the segments of the video, why you should leave the narcissist for good. I'm talking on subject matter of my first wife of 10 years. I could cover others, which I do in other videos, but I'm capturing just the marriage in between my wife of 10 years, my first wife, who I now, since most recently, been contemplating, in fact, been contemplating whether or not she is a narcissist. And so a lot of things that are leaning me that way. And so I was talking in the last video about the incident where she sustained an injury as a result of me slamming the door or grabbing the door and shutting it as she was trying to jump out or exit it while the car was rolling back. And this is after she had began to gaslight me in the store, Walmart in specific, where I was employed, fresh out of prison, first job. Now, that's not why I mention Walmart a lot. I mention Walmart because if anything can happen or anything that will happen happens at Walmart. So I kind of just play on words there. But in fact, I did work at Walmart. I worked at 2 different Walmarts, and I know a bunch about retail. I guess that's why I emphasize about Walmart. Nothing personal against Walmart, but we're going to go back. Whereas when she called the police, I believe that she, in essence, called him directly on his personal phone. And they just made it out like it was through 911. I was the only one in the dark. And I'm going to tell you why I surmise that. This officer comes. I don't know him from a can of paint. She talks to him first, he tells me to stand over there and he'll talk to me in a minute. Now, I look back at that incident. It's more or less when he pulls up, he tells me to stand over there almost like in this calm fashion, but with this disdain in his eyes. And I now see him, or I've seen him throughout the years working in capacities down at a state building state building as security or whatever. And so I've seen him frequently over the years and knowing what I know about him. And at first, when God began to reveal this stuff to me from, retrospecting and hindsight and whatever you want to call it, I began to just air it out. I used to call his name, put him out on blast to people, and in many cases, his co-workers in uniform. And to which a lot of them, I got about 60% of the responses from his co-workers and either people I would tell about him, mainly females. 60% of those responses would be, oh yeah, that's him. That's how he is. I've heard that. And so this wasn't just speculation I had. This is who he is. But he does what he does in uniform. He's a womanizer, if that's the word. He uses his uniform to draw women in who are vulnerable, weak-minded, in a compromising situation. Like he's the knight in shining armor, but he's using his badge to present himself as the savior. He's just looking at where he can get in and fit in. Hope this recorded. The red button seems to always Yep, we on. Sorry. I'm not going to re-record, so let's keep pressing on, guys. This is something I haven't talked about in a while, but I do want to get this out. And hopefully some of you guys will relate to it because your situations are probably as worse or worse turmoil-wise, but you're past it. But just to let you know, it's okay to talk about it in your timing if you ever talk about it. But it's okay to know what you know about certain factors. You don't have to sit there and get the validation from people who don't believe you. You know what you know. God shows you things after you're out of the situation. So this is what I'm trying to capture here. All of these things that I began to put pieces to the puzzle were happening after I was away from the situation. Now, this is where it gets grim. This is where it gets really, really spooky. Because when I talk to you guys about this, you'll see where my life was in jeopardy and I had no idea, but God knew. And he took me out of the situation. So I know this officer moonlighted when he wasn't working as volunteer coach at my son's elementary school. This was during my stay in prison. He went, so he basically was stalking not only my wife, but was using his assistant volunteer and coaching cover to get close and groom my son and my wife. And so her being a nurse, she always prided herself in, because nurses work in unison with police officers. When they bring them in, gunshot wound, they have to communicate amongst each other to give details and whatever. And sometimes they form relationships, you know, platonic, nothing romantic. In many cases, nurses meet police officers like that. And think about it. That's a big income. She's a nurse, civil service. He's a police officer, public servant. Not a bad thing. But in the way that this particular individual sought out, not just my wife, many women have, and he's actually been intimate with multiple women on his wife. This guy has a story. Just put it away. So I lose the job at Walmart. As a result of that incident, I end up getting arrested. I'm in the back of this guy's car. I'm just handcuffed. I'm talking to him. I'm like, man, I feel so bad about this. This wasn't even on purpose. It was an accident. I start rattling off, man, I went to prison I used to drink and I used to put my hands on my wife. And, I'm just bearing my soul. I'm just being straight up and honest with him, not trying to get him to believe me. I'm just basically being transparent, man to man. Inventing, because I'm feeling crushed, like, man, here I am, I don't even drink anymore. And then this fluke accident happened to her. I said it wasn't even intentional. I said when I went to prison for drinking, I said I was guilty of all the things that I ever did to my wife. I said I'm not a physical guy. And I was like, what's your name? I asked him what his name was, and he said he told me. And he said it in a very, very wicked way, like scornful way. Like, my name is as in, and I was like, wow, bro. I said, I don't even know you, man, like that. I say, you acting like, I'm a monster or something. You treat me like, or you talking to me like I'm a monster. I said, I just expressed to you, this was an accident. He said, you shouldn't be hitting on your wife. I was like, I told you just now, I didn't hit her. I didn't hit her physically with my hand. I didn't even intentionally slam the door against her to cause her harm like that. It wasn't deliberate. And so I didn't know then that I was just talking to a brick wall. He already was involved with her, intimate in all other ways, probably. So they was trying to get me out of the picture. These two, they were working in unison is what I'm getting at. And I'll tell you a few more instances where this will make perfect sense. I will go to jail. I get there. I go before the judge the next day for an arraignment. I'm handcuffed before the judge in this small little courthouse. There's not even anybody else in there. It's like a small courtroom, like a Barney, like a Mayberry type thing. And so I'm standing before the judge. He's reading, and then he says something like, I don't know if he said I had a bond. I think he said I'm giving him, he said he has the option of signing himself out on his own reconnaissance unless, officer, you feel like there is a concern or he poses a danger to parties involved. And I look over at him, and the judge is asking him, do you think he poses a problem or a threat or a danger? And bond should be denied. Asking the officer. An officer say, yeah, I think you should deny. I think he poses a problem, a threat. And I didn't know then, like I know now. And I looked at him like I did in the back of the car. Like, you don't even know me. Why are you like vilifying me? This was in the car before the conversation. And then now this is yet another instance where he's blocking me from even being able to be released. Because all I really want to do is get out and hopefully salvage my job at Walmart. But I didn't know that if you get in an incident on the property, and I hadn't called in like 2-3 days. So I'm hoping I have my job. And so he says, no, I don't think he should let him out. I was speechless. I was like, wow, this dude don't even know me. I'm thinking to myself, but obviously I'm not going to blurt out in the court. So I dropped my head in disgust. So they said, bailiffs, take him back to the jail. I stay in the jail, I don't know, maybe 3 days. I get out. I walk home. Well, I was attempting to walk home. I walk about a mile, and lo and behold, there's an officer coming from that particular police station, and he stops. He lets the window down, and he say, you need a ride? Which they generally don't do that. And I was like, yeah. I say, I work at Walmart. He said, yeah, I got to go over there anyway. He said, I'll take you, hop in. That was God. I hop in. I'm telling him a little bit of what happened on the way, the short version. I say, I'm just thankful to be out. Hopefully I can go back and, talk to the job, and I still got my job. And I think they want me to stay away from my wife and kids until I go to court. I said, well, I can do that. I said, because this was a freak accident. He said, yeah, that's the best thing to do. If you can get your job back, that'll be the best thing. And just focus on you right now. So the guy just was like solid. And you'll meet those type of people. And I'm sure you guys got those experiences where this guy or this woman just fell out of the sky somewhere. And God just put them in your path at that right time. And you knew that there was hope because God sent an angel just to kind of reaffirm the goodness in you that God sees. And so, man, not even knowing me, he was just giving me some inspiration. So I get out of the truck, and I said, yeah, thank you so much. He said, I appreciate the conversation. He gave me his name, and he's like, yeah, don't be a stranger, just a solid individual. I go into Walmart, and I asked to talk to the manager, and they said, well, he's gonna talk to you. He'll call you in a couple of days. The manager don't even want to talk to me. And so this is a protocol. They don't want to talk to you until you're fired. So they said they'll give you a call. They want to fire you at a distance because of all the stuff that could possibly happen. Like when you get fired from a lot of jobs, they have to walk you out of that job site because they don't want anything to happen, repercussions or whatever. And it's silly because as soon as they walk you out, you can come back in the store. Walk of shame is what it is. So anyway, there was an incident. Actually, I finally got out. I lost my job. So I had to go back to the house and retrieve my stuff with a law enforcement officer, obviously. I get there. She done packed all of my stuff in the front seat and the back seat of this car I had. Wasn't even nowhere to sit. She had so much of my stuff crammed in there. So I managed to get enough room to sit. I drove my car away, and I found an apartment house nearby down in the city somewhere. And I got that, no deposit down, told this guy I knew him from church, and he allowed me to rent. And so when I got this apartment, it's one sunny day, I'll never forget it, I had the door open. All of a sudden I hear somebody walk in. It's my wife with my kids just walk in the house and say, so this is where you're at. You ain't even, so you seem like you living good. You ain't even worrying about your kids. So running the guilt trip on me when I wasn't even allowed to go near them before court. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing so I don't get myself in trouble. So now this is another part of why I know that she is a narcissist. They don't want you, but they want to keep tabs on you. I end up at some point getting a job at Lowe's. It was one night I walked up towards the front of the store and I saw this big spotlight going back and forth. And so I darted behind the door. And lo and behold, I saw this same sheriff's office car shining his light on my tag. It was this incident, and it was an incident when I was leaving work one morning. And this was the span of a few months. This officer pulls me over. Lo and behold, it's the same officer that arrested me probably months before that I ended up going to jail for, that denied me to be released at his discretion from the judge. So he pulls me over. I sit there 10 minutes. He finally gets out of the car, comes up to my door. I realize it's him. He calls me by first name. And I say, hey, what's up? He say, your truck's a little loud. And so I gave him my license. He gave it back to me, didn't even run night. He said, all right, have a good night. He held me on the side of the road in a total about 10 to 15 minutes. I now realize that he was stalling me, intercepted me to stall me because he had just left my house. This man was frequenting my house while I was at work. This is what I perceive. So the grim part of this story is, guys, had I had left work early on any given night, and that night that spotlight was going and checking my tag, he would stalk me to make sure I was at work either before he went to my house or during the time when he left my house. And so if I had left work feeling ill at any given moment, any given time, I could have very well walked in on him at my house, and he could have possibly shot me, killed me. I got domestics in my past. He could have just lied with her, saying that he was violent, he was attacking her, and I was called and I had to do this and that. They would have probably inevitably found out that it was a lie. But the point is, I could have lost my life in the fact that these two individuals was playing house behind my back. So be thankful you're away from the narcissist. This is yet another reason why you should leave the narcissist for good. Thank you for listening. That being said, bless.